Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Beyond Second Cognition. I'm Beall. The topic of this discussion is the problem with filters and data translation. We've talked about cognitive filters in our other videos. Our cognitive filters are the concepts and ideas that we have in our minds that have been programmed into us that make us think a certain way and reach certain conclusions based on the interpretive data we have stored in our brains. These filters are set up through the educational system. They are set up through our religions and the beliefs we embrace. And whenever we find new information, we pass this information through these filters in a form of comparison to reach a conclusion. And in most cases, people utilize confirmation bias to take the information and force it to fit into their conceptual boxes, their compartmentalized boxes. And the filters are what this information has to pass through for us to reach our conclusions or assess our final judgments on material or information. Because religions and the spiritualists have controlled the marketplace for anything that goes beyond the primary five senses for so long, we all have established filtering systems in reference to those types of experiences. And when we have an odd experience, we either translate it through the filters of our religious beliefs that they're talking to God or angels, or through the spiritual beliefs that you're talking to the divine or aliens or some other such nonsense. By controlling the dialogue, these filters have been established and firmly kept in place. So when someone has a different experience, like the ascension symptoms that we noted in previous videos, the dialogue is controlled and your perceptions are controlled, and then filters are established through which you translate new information. In the Body as an Antenna video, I told you how the nervous system, the heart, mind, and the body come to be able to receive other information from other places. Just because you receive the information doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to translate it in the appropriate manner. When we get information, we have a very bad tendency to sort it into what we think we know. We want to fit it into our boxes. So even though you may get information with your raised human body antenna, it still has to pass through the filtering systems of what you think you know. And in a vast majority of cases, at least in the start, these pre-established filters give us mistranslations. In other words, we try to make the data fit into the box. As you grow in this process, you're going to have to knock down a lot of these old filters because the information is just not going to fit. It's not going to be comparable to what you know. In most cases, when people get something beyond their ken, beyond their database of knowledge based on their indoctrination, they have a tendency to ignore it. If the information challenges what they think they know, they will more especially ignore it because they don't want to let loose of what they think they know in the face of conflicting data. As the human antenna attunes and starts bringing in this information, each one of you is going to have to learn to tear down these old filters in most cases, because if you don't, you are going to wind up mistranslating the information you get. Whatever bleeds through your antenna receptors is going to pass through the filters that you already have pre-established. And if those filters are incorrect, then your translation of the data received is also going to be equally incorrect. And this is why you have to knock down the walls of these cognitive boxes and break down these filters in order to translate the data in a more correct and comprehensive manner. If you keep trying to shrink everything into the limited, known, programmed, indoctrinated boxes of your present state of consciousness, you're not going to interpret the data correctly. You're going to come up with a wrong answer, or at best a half-right answer. So you need to be aware that this filtering system is part of what has to be challenged in your cleanup process. Confirmation bias wants to make us believe what we think we know. And so we have a very bad tendency of taking information and using it like a pretzel and twisting it to fit into these known boxes of our perceptions. When you start getting the higher level information, you're going to run out of points to compare, because some of this data goes far beyond any of human experience and definitely beyond most 3D human 5 sense perceptual experiences. You're going to have to come up with a different way to interpret the data. You can't use the same old filters to reach correct conclusions based on the information that filters through to your brain. Another aspect of this, and some of you may have experienced it, is that sense of knowing something just beyond the recesses of your mind. You know something, but you can't quite put your finger on it. This is another part of this process where the body-mind and the heart-mind, the nervous system, starts to transmit data which tries to bleed through to the brain, which is more like the bottleneck in the equation. This sense of knowing something that you can't put your fingers on is part of this advancing consciousness circumstance. When you feel this or sense this within yourself, it is received data simmering and percolating and trying to adjust itself to where it can bleed into your consciousness, to where you can understand what it is that is actually being translated, and the brain will eventually get it. But it creates sort of a nagging feeling in your mind where you know something, but you just don't quite know it. And I wanted to put this out because I'm sure some of you have experienced this. And I wanted to give you the explanation as to why you have this feeling. You can't really describe it, and what I've attempted to do here is only a close approximation of the sensory feeling of it. So if you have experienced it, know that you're not losing it, that this is part of the translation process as the information compresses to bleed through to the waking awareness controlled by the brain. I just wanted to put this information out there to give all you folks that are working on this. If you haven't experienced it, you probably will. If you are experiencing it, then this is what it's about. But this filtering system that we have in place is insufficient to provide all the answers. If you take the information that you receive outside your daily human 5 sense perception and try to squeeze it into that 5 sense box of knowns through your pre-established filters, you're not going to come up with a correct interpretation on the data. I just wanted to share this so everybody knows about it. For those of you doing the work, stay the course. Don't give up on yourselves.